Welcome to the Ask Junior Monthly Judgment Podcast. I'm Priya Sharma, and joining me today is Arjun Mehta.
Hello, everyone. We're excited to dive into the key Delhi High Court judgments from September 2024.
Thanks, Arjun. We've got a packed episode today with some fascinating cases from the Delhi High Court. Let's start with a case that caught my attention, Rajendra Kumar Tripathi versus State of NCT of Delhi. This case deals with the denial of bail to an accused charged under various sections of the Indian Penal Code.
That's right, Priya. This case is particularly interesting because it highlights the factors courts consider when granting or denying bail. The Delhi High Court dismissed Rajendra Kumar Tripathi's bail application, even though the offenses he was charged with were triable by a magistrate, and the maximum sentence under Section 420 IPC was up to 7 years.
What were the key factors that led to the denial of bail in this case, Arjun?
Well, the court took into account the petitioner's past conduct, which was quite problematic. He had previously been granted bail by the magistrate based on a settlement with the complainant. However, he failed to honor that settlement and absconded, leading to the cancellation of his bail and the issuance of non-bailable warrants.
That's certainly not going to work in his favor. It seems the court placed a lot of emphasis on the accused's reliability and likelihood of appearing for trial.
Exactly. The court held that the petitioner's past conduct, including his failure to appear regularly before the court, disentitled him to the grant of bail at this stage. It's a reminder that bail is not just about the nature of the offense, but also about the accused's behavior and reliability.
Interesting. The court also considered the applicability of Section 436A of the Criminal Procedure Code in this case, right?
Yes, that's an important point. Section 436A CARPC generally allows for the release of an under-trial prisoner who has served more than half of the maximum sentence prescribed for the offense. However, in this case, the court found that the petitioner's past conduct warranted continued detention, even though he might have qualified under Section 436A.
This case really underscores the discretionary power of the courts in bail matters, doesn't it? It's not just about the letter of the law, but also about the specific circumstances of each case.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that bail decisions are complex and multifaceted. Courts have to balance various factors, including the nature of the offense, the evidence against the accused, the likelihood of the accused fleeing justice or tampering with evidence, and the accused's past behavior.
Moving on to another interesting case, let's discuss Vishesh Films Private Limited versus Super Cassettes Industries Limited. This one deals with trademark infringement in the film industry.
Yes, this case is a great example of how trademark law applies in the entertainment sector. The Delhi High Court held that the plaintiff's registered trademark, Ashiki, is a distinctive mark that has acquired secondary meaning through the success of the Ashiki film franchise.
Can you explain what secondary meaning means in trademark law, Arjun?
Certainly, Priya. In trademark law, secondary meaning occurs when a mark that might otherwise be considered descriptive has become so associated with a particular product or service that it takes on a new, distinctive meaning. In this case, Ashiki has become so closely associated with the film franchise that it's no longer just a generic word, but a distinctive brand.
That makes sense. So what was the issue in this case?
The defendant wanted to use the title Tu Hi Ashiki Hai for their film. The court found this to be deceptively similar to the plaintiff's trademark and likely to cause public confusion about the film's association with the Ashiki franchise, even with the defendant's disclaimer.
It's interesting that even with a disclaimer, the court still found it problematic. What does this tell us about the strength of established trademarks in the film industry?
It shows that courts are willing to provide strong protection for established film franchises. Even if a new title isn't exactly the same, if it's similar enough to potentially confuse the public, it can still be considered infringement. This is particularly true for franchises that have built up significant goodwill and recognition over time.
The court also rejected the defendant's arguments of estoppel and acquiescence. Can you explain what these legal concepts mean and why they were rejected?
Certainly. Estoppel is a legal principle that prevents someone from asserting something contrary to what is implied by their previous actions or statements. Acquiescence, in this context, would mean that the trademark owner had passively accepted the use of a similar mark over time.
The court rejected these arguments, likely because the plaintiff had been actively protecting their trademark and hadn't given any indication that they were okay with others using similar titles. This underscores the importance of trademark owners consistently enforcing their rights.
Thank you for that explanation, Priya. It's clear that trademark protection in the film industry is taken very seriously by the courts. Let's move on to a case that deals with a completely different area of law, income tax. The case is Microsoft India R&D PVT Ltd. Versus Deputy Commissioner of Income Tax and Honor.
This is indeed a significant case in the realm of income tax law, Arjun. The Delhi High Court made an important ruling regarding the procedural requirements under Section 144C of the Income Tax Act.
Can you give us some background on what Section 144C is about?
Certainly. Section 144C of the Income Tax Act deals with a specific procedure for certain types of assessees, particularly in cases involving transfer pricing adjustments. It requires the assessing officer to first pass a draft assessment order and provide the eligible assessee an opportunity to file objections before the dispute resolution panel.
And what did the court find in this case?
The court held that the income tax assessing officer had failed to comply with this mandatory requirement. They had directly passed a final assessment order without first issuing a draft order and allowing the assessee to file objections.
That sounds like a significant procedural error. What were the consequences of this failure?
The consequences were quite severe. The court ruled that this failure rendered the final assessment orders passed by the assessing officer without jurisdiction and null and void. This was regardless of whether the time limit prescribed under Section 153 had expired.
That's a strong stance by the court. Did the Revenue Department try to argue that this was just a minor procedural issue?
They did, Arjun. The Revenue argued that the failure to pass a draft order was merely a procedural irregularity. However, the court rejected this argument, upholding the consistent position taken in previous decisions that Section 144C confers substantive rights on the assessee.
This case really highlights the importance of following proper procedures in tax assessments, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It sends a clear message that tax authorities must strictly adhere to the procedural requirements laid down in the law. These procedures are not mere formalities, but are designed to protect the rights of taxpayers and ensure a fair assessment process.
What do you think are the broader implications of this judgment, Priya?
I think this judgment reinforces the principle that taxpayers' rights must be respected throughout the assessment process. It also underscores the importance of giving assessees the opportunity to present their case before a final order is passed, especially in complex cases involving transfer pricing.
Moreover, it serves as a warning to tax authorities to be meticulous in following the prescribed procedures. The fact that the court was willing to quash the assessment orders entirely, rather than just sending them back for correction, shows how seriously it views these procedural requirements.
Thank you for that insightful analysis, Arjun. Now let's move on to a case that touches on political speech and defamation, Arvind Kejriwal and Ors versus State and Honor.
This is indeed a fascinating case, Priya, that deals with the intersection of political speech and defamation law. The case revolves around statements made by Arvind Kejriwal, the Chief Minister of Delhi, and other members of his party, alleging that the BJP had deleted the names of certain voters from the electoral rolls.
That's quite a serious allegation. How did the court view these statements?
The Delhi High Court held that these statements were prima facie defamatory against the BJP and its office bearers. The court found that the complainant, Rajiv Babar, who was the authorized representative of BJP Delhi Pradesh, falls within the ambit of some person aggrieved under Section 199 of the Code of Criminal Procedure and was competent to file the complaint.
This raises some interesting questions about the limits of political speech, doesn't it? Can you explain a bit more about what prima facie defamatory means in this context?
Certainly. Prima facie defamatory means that on the face of it, without deeper examination, the statements appear to be defamatory. In other words, if these allegations are false, they would tend to harm the reputation of the BJP and its office bearers. The court is not saying definitively that the statements are false or defamatory, but that there's enough of a case to proceed to trial.
I see. And what about the petitioner's argument that these statements were made in good faith and for public good?
The court addressed this point, but held that this defense needs to be established during the trial. At this stage, the court was only deciding whether there was enough of a case to proceed to trial, not making a final determination on the merits of the case.
This case seems to highlight the tension between political speech and defamation law. On one hand, we want to protect robust political debate, but on the other hand, we don't want false allegations to go unchecked. How do you think courts generally navigate this balance, Arjun?
You've hit on a crucial point, Priya. Courts often have to walk a fine line in these cases. They recognize the importance of free speech, especially in the political context where public figures should be open to criticism. However, they also aim to protect individuals and organizations from false statements that could harm their reputation.
In general, courts tend to give more leeway to political speech, recognizing that the rough and tumble of political debate often involves strong language and accusations. However, they draw the line at demonstrably false statements made with malice or reckless disregard for the truth.
That makes sense. So in this case, by allowing the complaint to proceed, the court is essentially saying that these allegations are serious enough and potentially damaging enough that they need to be examined more closely in a trial setting.
Exactly. The court is saying that there's enough of a case here to warrant a full trial. It's important to note that this doesn't mean the court has found Kejriwal and the others guilty of defamation. It just means that the complainant has presented enough evidence to justify moving forward with the case.
Thank you for that explanation, Priya. It will be interesting to see how this case develops. Now let's move on to a case that deals with a very different area of law, patent law. The case is Access Limited versus Controller of Patents and Designs.
This is indeed an interesting case in the field of patent law, Arjun. It deals with the scope of amendments that can be made to patent claims under Section 59(1) of the Patents Act, 1970.
Can you give us some background on what Section 59(1) is about?
Certainly. Section 59(1) of the Patents Act allows for amendments to be made to patent specifications and claims, but with certain restrictions. The key requirement is that the amendment should not go beyond the scope of the disclosure in the original application.
And what was the issue in this particular case?
In this case, Access Limited had made amendments to their patent claims. The Controller of Patents had rejected these amendments, but the Delhi High Court overturned that decision.
What was the basis for the High Court's decision?
The High Court held that the amended claims made by Access Limited were within the scope of the original PCT, Patent Cooperation Treaty, claims and specifications. The court noted that the detailed description in the original specification supported the amended claims, which included the composition as a product aspect in addition to the use aspect.
This sounds quite technical. Can you break down what this means in simpler terms?
Of course. Essentially, the court was saying that Access Limited didn't introduce any new information in their amended claims. They just presented the information that was already in their original application in a different way. Instead of just claiming a use for their invention, they also claimed the product itself. But importantly, all the information about this product was already present in their original application.
I see. So the court is allowing patent applicants some flexibility in how they present their claims, as long as they're not introducing entirely new information.
Exactly. This decision provides some clarity on how Section 59(1) should be interpreted. It allows patent applicants to refine and optimize their claims based on the information in their original application, which can be crucial for ensuring strong patent protection.
What do you think are the broader implications of this judgment, Priya?
This judgment is likely to be welcomed by patent applicants and their attorneys. It provides more flexibility in claim drafting and allows applicants to adapt their claims to better protect their inventions, as long as they stay within the bounds of their original disclosure.
It's also a reminder of the importance of including comprehensive information in the original patent application. The more detailed and thorough the original disclosure, the more room there is for potential amendments later in the process.
Thank you for that explanation, Arjun. It's clear that patent law requires a delicate balance between allowing inventors to protect their innovations and ensuring that patent claims are clear and based on the original invention.
Absolutely, Priya. Patent law is all about striking that balance. It's designed to reward innovation while also ensuring that the public has access to clear information about what exactly is being patented.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from bail applications to trademark infringement, tax law, defamation, and patent law. It's been a fascinating look at the diverse range of cases that come before the Delhi High Court.
Indeed, it has. These cases demonstrate the complexity of our legal system and the careful consideration that judges must give to a wide range of factors in reaching their decisions.
Absolutely, and it's a reminder of how important it is for all of us to have at least a basic understanding of the law, as it touches so many aspects of our lives.
Couldn't agree more, Priya. Well, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. We hope our listeners have found this exploration of recent Delhi High Court judgments informative and thought-provoking.
Thank you all for listening to the Ask Junior Monthly Judgment Podcast. We'll be back next month with more key judgments and legal insights. Until then, stay informed and stay curious about the law.